All right. So we're live, by the way. We are live now, I should say. Good
Awesome.
evening to everybody, or good morning, depending on what time you watch us. I probably should say, if you're watching this later in the day, make sure you tell your mother and your grandmother Happy Mother's Day. Other than that, I got nothing for you. We got American Pope. I don't know what to deal with that. He's from Chicago.
All I saw was we've got a Chilean Pope who was from America.
He's from Chicago. He likes the White Sox. And I think, if you become a cardinal underneath his papacy, or whatever the correct term is, you should have to do a shot of Malort. And if you don't know what that is, you are a lucky person. You do know what that is. Well, I know the pain.
I just, I'm not too thrilled about, well, the new Pope to me is one of these that, anyway. I looked at him, I would have rather had the African Pope. But
I wanted pizza ball.
What's that?
I wanted pizza ball. Just so I could say the Pope is pizza ball.
Yeah, I know that the African Pope was very conservative, but the previous Pope did not like, some of the things I'm going through. Like if you're gonna go Catholicism, stop half-assing it and go like Latin Mass and all the other crap, and they're trying to stomp that stuff out. So I was like, I guess there's a lot of money in there.
You have to keep it fresh. You have to keep it.
Except you don't have to keep it fresh. You just have to keep it relevant. That doesn't mean fresh. I mean, the whole point of it is if you're changing with the times, then you're probably not following the one true way.
The problem is if you don't get kids in your church, I don't care if it's Catholic, Southern Baptist, or Lutheran, whatever, down the line. If there is no youth willing to go to your church, then you have no future church.
Yes, but the problem is that you're appealing to a group that isn't going to come to your church anyway. Yeah. So you're losing both the faithful and the... Well, here's the interesting thing is the only place that Catholicism's really spreading is in Africa. So you think they would have focused on Africa. But I'll tell you this much. What it really is, it's about money. And the West gives money, and this was one of those things like, well, you cut off U.S. aid, so we're going to put in a pope just to spite you. I'm like, well, good luck.
I think in order, it's Brazil, Spain, Italy, of course. I want to say, well, then you get into Orthodox Catholic, and that's like Greece. But no, I'm for Roman Catholic. Some of Ireland. I don't know. I don't have the map in front of me. But no, having another South American Pope would made sense. They have a huge population of Catholics down there.
Oh, well, they do, and I mean, I understand. You're doing some of it, but unfortunately, if you're not going to stand for something, and again, I'm not disagreeing that you want to get young people in there, but you're not going to get them in there by.
I just want a picture of the new Pope drinking a highlight. Or old style.
He just needs absinthe. Hey, look, guys, this is the little green fairy. I mean, if you can go that way, go all the way.
Well, Britain had a Pope, or the Pope that came out of England. The Irish still have not had a Pope. I don't think it's very fair.
Oh, that's true. Well, well, it depends if you talk to the Irish. The Irish will say, I'm sorry, then the English will say, oh, yeah, the Irish had the Pope. It was ours.
Anyways, play anything interesting this week?
No, I was, I went out to the field this week and keeping up with my exercise, which is good. Now, I was hoping to have a game this morning, but no one was on. And then then the guy who was going to have the game this evening, he said he was busy. So it's like, okay. But no, I've been reading through the Alien RPG, the second edition. And I don't necessarily like the color change because it doesn't work on PDF as well as the previous one, but I will say this much. The previous book was so black and it was reflective that it was hard to read. So I'd like to see what happens when they get the paper. That said, is they condensed a lot of it. There was a lot of white, we'll call it white space, even though it was black pages, but you know what I mean. They condensed a lot more, so it seems to be a much better layout. The rules I like mostly better. There were a few things I wish that they'd included that they didn't include in this one. It's not that you can't include it; they're just not explicit this time. And part of that explicitness was if you get more than one success, what you can use those successes for. So, but other than that, I'm liking what I'm reading. So
That's good. We had Bruce's game earlier on today, and my character doesn't get hit much. I'm not saying it doesn't get hit. Hell, it killed my character 4 weeks ago. It does happen, but
yeah,
we got Janet healed us, and my character's still pretty much maxed out. I'm like, thank God we're not playing Iron Kingdom, and I get why? Because I would have popped like a blood pimple.
you know what though is I don't know if it's still there, but I picked up they had on Humble Bundle the Iron Kingdom
Yeah.
set for all of it. So I have I think I had all of because I really liked what their background was and things for it. I had their previous version, which was a 2D6 system. Well, the basic is 2D6. You can get up to like 4 or 5D6 theoretically if you add everything up. And the more I looked at the system, the more I liked it. I really liked the way they did it. But it was like they did several books and then they just dropped it. It was just like gone. They did this big support, and the stuff that Douglas Seacat did for it, I thought was fantastic. But they didn't do the 2 areas I thought that they would have. I know that they've done it with 5th edition, but I haven't looked at the 5th edition. But the 2 came together with the PDFs. I thought it was a pretty good deal. Let me see if it's still up there.
Oh my! Well, you know Jade. Jade
Yeah.
ran an RPG version of it, and it was a D20 system, compatible a little bit with.
That was the 3rd edition version.
Yeah,
And so they had the 3rd edition version. I guess it just closed, but I bought the system in between the 3rd and the 5th. So that was their own homebrew system, which followed the rules for like the miniature game. And actually, I played a couple of things with it. I thought it was actually sometimes things don't click with me, but years later I go, yeah, I think they did a good job with it. I think they did a pretty good job with it. It just didn't catch on.
the 3rd edition, it just needed a better editor. I think it was a great idea, great system. It was different. I mean, it kind of brought steampunk into fantasy, but it wasn't crazy steampunk. And
it wasn't quite Eberron.
Right. And no, it was fun. It was fun while it lasted. Jade is actually a great DM. He's one of my favorite people. I help say he's my friend, but I think he's just an excellent DM. And so every once in a while, I'll just get old RPG flashbacks from other systems when something happens. I'm like, God, I'm just like I said earlier when I got healed, and I mean it went way above my constitution. I would have popped like a blood pimple. Like,
well, let's see. I mean, let me see when I bought it. So the Humble Bundle was probably a month ago or so. Let's see my purchases. So I bought it March 24th. So it's been out for a little over a month. But that included all the 5e stuff and their Monsternomicon. And like I said, they did a really good job with their home system. I haven't looked at the 5e just because I'm not a big fan of 5e. And that may not be fair because I've noticed that a lot of systems I do kind of like is based on 5e.
It's a generic engine.
It is a generic engine, and if you tweak it, it gets so much better.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I think the problem was for D&D is they do it, but they've made it so generic that it loses a lot of the interesting flavor that it once had.
I think if they just dropped the books, just the books, but no modules, and told the DMs go out, do what you want with it, and stayed out of the political aspect. Their mods, most of their modules are bullshit, and just let the DMs go out there and make your own roll. Here's here's the sandbox. Go forth and have fun with it. I think it would have been received better.
I Well, I think part of it comes down to, and of course, this is the people who grew up with the old D&D. It doesn't matter whether it's first, second, or third. Um, Looked at fifth, and I don't really have anything against fifth, but they have so watered it down that their unique settings aren't unique anymore. They're just like, hey, we're just putting a skin across it, and we're not really changing it. Whereas growing up when I did, look. Dragonlance was very different. Dragonlance was very different, and this we're talking about for first edition from Greyhawk.
Right.
And then Greyhawk was a bit different than Forgotten Realms. Greyhawk and Forgotten Realms were pretty close to each other. But then you had things like Spelljammer, which was completely different. And then you had things like Dark Sun, Ravenloft, and it just seems like they haven't leaned into those settings. To me, if you're going to do a setting, lean into it hard.
Oh yeah, no, I agree.
And not a module either. I mean, if you're going to put out a book, put out a good book, and then say, okay, and then see how it sells. And I understand, what was it? Max Liao talking about, oh, it's this, and well, people were saying I was playing Dark Sun versus this one. I said, I don't know. When we played with whatever everyone was going for. One guy liked Ravenloft. I liked Dark Sun. Other people just wanted the Forgotten Realms, and we all played because we didn't mind having multiple characters. We didn't get invested into everything. It doesn't matter what setting you're in. You can just play in that setting. When you play in Bruce's game, you're going to be playing in Bruce's setting.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't matter. Even if he took the most, or like you said with Jade, even if Jade took the Iron Kingdom stuff, it's going to be right. Jade's Iron Kingdom because he's going to tweak it to his thing. So everything's kind of unique for that. So I don't see the big problem with it myself. But yeah, I do like it. I think that, but boy, they did a lot of stuff for 5e. I'm just looking at it. Good grief. But I do like the fact they brought in the other version too. And I like again, I don't know what they're doing with the 5e, but the previous version, I liked what they did with rumors. So they gave like a certain DC. And if you got that DC, you got the information about the monster. And then if you got a little bit higher, and some of it was, let's say that, if you can use D&D, if your DC was 15, 15 would give you one information. DC 20 would give you something else, 25, and then 30. Well, what's interesting is some of the lower ones were incorrect.
Oh, God.
Because the idea is this is what you know from the legends around you. It doesn't mean that they're correct. And I think all too often people are going through, I thought that was kind of cool, was the higher the DC, the more obscure or the more correct the information was. Whereas the low DCs didn't. And I thought that was a really cool idea. And I wish more games would do that instead of saying, oh, well, you get a success. No, what you should do is you should get the information that's available. And I've got into arguments with people about that. It's like, no, if you do it, you should know everything.
Well, with the tagline rumors, not lore, not, facts, but rumors, you kind of get what you get and hope, an inkling of it's, accurate.
Oh, yeah.
I like that concept. Here recently I was asked to put together a 5th edition version of Harry Potter for kids.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so
wait a minute, that is 5e.
Go ahead. Yeah, I know. I've actually never thumbed through that module, but yeah.
Oh, you're talking about their Witch Haven or whatever. Or yeah, the Strixhaven or whatever. Yeah, whichever one it was.
Yeah.
But
I'm like, okay, if I do it, it's going to be like way before the story everybody not everybody, but the story that's. So, I don't know. I've been kind of nerding out and looking into the lore, or it's interesting stuff, and it's For a bunch of kids, I'll go the extra mile because honestly, I believe the school system is robbing our kids of imagination and creativity. And games like this, not even mine, but games in general, have a way of installing back into them, and I think that's very important.
That's part of the reason I liked setting books and monster manuals and stuff like that, or the books which were second. I only mentioned second edition because again, I didn't play third for the most part. They had books that were called like Catacombs and this, and the old Dungeon Master Guide had it fairly thick, but I just remember what they called the blue book. So they had one on ships, they had one on catacombs and layers. They had different things in there, which I really liked because it helps the dungeon master get into it. And then, of course, they had the green books, which were individual settings, which were historic settings. And then they had the red books, which in retrospect, I didn't like the red books, but those sold. But
that's part of it. 4.0 for 4.0 for Dungeons and Dragons came out. They came out with those board games. The Wrath Charlon, Curse of Strahd, The Legend of Driz. I bought all of them because I just wanted the tiles and the figs. I could give a rat's ass about the game.
Yep.
And if I'm doing a dungeon or a labyrinth per se, I'll just put a stack of tiles together and let the players, I'm like, left, right, you pick the tile, you pick the direction. And I would have another list with like monsters that was a percentage roll of what they're going to run into and just ran it that way. And I thought it was fun. I think kind of, as a DM, you want to know where the story is going. But there's rare occasions, like with the Labyrinth, where you can just let the dice be the dice.
So I think, and this is the way I'm looking at it, I think sometimes 5e has really gone towards, I want to call it the storytelling game, which is the DM has a story he wants to lay out, and the players are following through that.
Right.
Now, does that mean that the players can't change things? So the players can change things, but it's kind of but the DM will decide where they're going to go. And then the sandbox is the players decide entirely where they're going to go. And I kind of like I want to call it kind of an in-between where you have your meta plot in the background where the DM's running it, and the players are going to do whatever they're going to do. And then it's like, look, if you don't stop this whatever, then you're going to get impacted by it, but I'm not going to force you to go down that path.
I know I'm younger than you, and this is not calling you up for your age, but growing up, I was big into video games. I don't play as much as I like to. I keep buying them, but I don't fucking play them anymore. I just bought
the Jedi Survivor, so I understand.
But I like, it's like a movie. In my head, every game I've been, it's a movie. It has a beginning, a climax, then the end.
Right.
And video games, same way. Beginning, climax, and then even if it's a sandbox game, it still has those elements. And getting away to where it's too much sandbox, you're eating more peas than potatoes. But if you go the other way, where it's a railroad, you're not even at the plate. You're just looking at your drink, hoping for the best.
And what I mean by sandbox, it's not that you can't have it, but I want the players to be how do I want to put this? All too often, I think that there are people out there who everyone wants to be the hero of the game. They do. And whenever I'm afraid of a railroad it doesn't matter whether I make the right choice or the wrong choice, I'm still going to go down that path. Whereas I kind of like and I don't want to say meta plot necessarily, but things are going on in the world, which is true no matter what. Let's assume that this is a perfect example. Your players are going over, let's assume that they're the United States of America. If you're looking at that, okay, we control what the U.S. is going to do. That's great. But guess what? You don't control everything. You have other things, and they have their own motivations, and they're still going to do whatever they're going to do. Perfect example right now is Pakistan and India. Doesn't matter what we say. Doesn't matter what Europe says. They've made that decision. And now everyone has to react to it. And how they react to it is I'm out or I'm in. Just like Ukraine and Russia. Hey, I'm out or I'm in. But those events still occur. And then at the lower level, what do your players do? Well, okay, if they're, and I'm just using real world as an example for
No,
this.
I get it.
It's like, look, the world is still going to move no matter what decisions you make. The decisions you make will impact the world. But if you don't react to whatever's going on in that, it's still going to occur. Now, you can stop it if you are heroic. A perfect example is the Lich King is deciding to take over the islands, these islands in the corner. Well, you can kind of ignore him for a couple of decades because it takes him a while to get there. I'm not going to force the players to do that. But what is going to happen is all of a sudden they're going to notice that more people are, the world is still going to be impacted by whatever they ignore. Right. Is what I'm trying to say. And that's the way I kind of like this. I don't want to force you to do that. It's just like whenever we talk about my friend for Star Wars. They're like, well, I don't want to be part of that because you have to be part of the Empire. My view is like, no, I'm going to put you so far on the edge of the universe that you can hear about all the stuff that happened in the movies, but it's not directly impacting you per se.
Right.
And that to me is the way I want to do it. Guess what? You can make your own kingdoms way out here. You can hear stuff that happened back over there, but you're doing your own thing. And yes, there will be impacts by the main story on you, but it's not your main story. And I think that's the...
Oh yeah, I mean, definitely having having effect on a supply line of some sort. Things are. I'm not saying the magic shop, but things are getting harder. Day to day shit's getting harder to find.
Yep.
No, I get that. I think it was Kai. I think Kai has talked about that where he has a timeline board. I know Max has brought up doing stuff. And that's really a smart way to do it, for what it's worth. I don't know. There's a part of me, I have to find the right DM for this thought processing, but I want to be the bad guy. No. You read American Gods by
I'm familiar with it. I've watched the first season. I haven't read it, but
Mr. Wednesday.
Yes,
he's the bad guy. I hate to break it to you, but he at the end he really is the bad guy. But the entire story, you're working with this guy, or he's in your party because he's with you. And in the background, he has his own goal, and he doesn't have to be lawful evil. He could be lawful good. I mean, there's some right bastards out there that are considered to be lawful good that still need to be taken out just as long with the lawful evil. But I want to be that character that's kind of puppet mastering with the DM to a certain degree. I don't want I want dragon to appear up. Nothing like that. But tilt the dice a little bit to get what I want. Where's that kingdom over there? And that kingdom's bad. Let's go take them out. Okay.
Well, and I'm not against, how do I want to put this? And it just depends on what you're going through. I think all too often, it's like, well, we've got to be the hero. We've got to stop this. Not, hey, guess what? We're going to still let the thing happen, but I'm going to carve out my niche in the world, which is what I really want. I'd rather players do that, is carve the niche out.
It's an interesting concept, but most campaigns everybody has to be at least good or neutral. And like I said, I would play a lawful good character, even though it'd make my skin crawl.
Yeah, well, how do I want to put this? You talk about lawful good, and I think the problem is that people look what I want to call is lawful stupid, which I don't like. There's that, or they kind of ignore it.
And the unbendable paladin.
Yeah. Well, it's not only are they unbendable, but then they're doing something stupid. Like, not, hey, we can't sneak in there because it's against my ethics to go. No, that isn't. You can still sneak in. You can do stuff. What do you... I think that's the... And the older I get, the more I do not like paladins or rangers or druids.
Rangers and druids, I could be an evil druid and still be a good guy.
Oh, well, you want to speak about that speaking of Iron Kingdoms. Because when I played, I liked the Circle of Ouroboros.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And those are not friendly, nice good druids. That said, is they're trying to do something to prevent, like, if you get this out of whack, then we will be getting, you'll be unleashing things that are far worse than what they're trying to stop. So you're not good, but you're not necessarily.
I don't even want my druid, especially in Iron Kingdom, to be good. They almost have to be neutral.
Or neutral evil.
Right. I want to be, not that me as a person is an eco-terrorist, but I would like to play as a druid an eco-terrorist. You humans, orcs, goblins have tainted the land. I'm going to take it back, but you're not going to like how it looks.
Well, for
or my
them, it's
methods.
part of it is you have reminds me of the good old werewolf game.
Oh yeah.
If you remember that, is like, talk about eco-terrorism. Like, look, you have gone out of control. It's as much as people talk about the worm, the weaver was the big issue. The weaver's gone out of control, and now you say, well, how do we balance that? Well, the balance is that in certain points you have to invoke terrible things, which is part of the reason. I forgot what his name was, but I have like $1,500 worth of Iron Kingdoms miniatures. I like the trolls.
Oh wow.
And the trolls to me were as close to good as you were going to get in most cases, because I like the trolls a lot.
I like what they were elves, the Nis.
Yes.
I thought they were interesting. They weren't your stereotypical hippie
Well, those were your
elf.
dark elves. Those were your dark elves, but you had good elves, but that was part of the game. I had Unleashed, which I like the alligator men, and I like the Tharns too, which were cannibalistic humans. I mean,
speaking of cannibalistic, playing Iron Kingdom, this was years ago. Keep this in mind, years ago. We had a party. I think there was a goblin, because goblins are playable class in that game. Yep. Human, an elf, and a trollkin. Am I saying that right? A trollkin?
Trollkin. Yep.
Then you had my character that was a Nis druid.
Oh, okay.
Where the trollkin died, and as a druid, to me, nothing should go to waste. As a druid, nothing goes to waste. So Jade, in his infinite wisdom, has said, well, if you cast something, nature's ally, whatever in the area will show up. It's not a spiritual being, it's nature. Nature will show up. So a deer shows up, and I'm like, what do you need, boss? Lunch. Oh, okay. And I killed the deer.
So I'm trying to find it here.
Then I took the trollkin and I turned it into a pot of soup.
Okay. So, and
some of the party had a little bit of an issue once they found out.
So there's the Iron Kingdoms Unleashed.
Oh wow!
And you weren't playing the good guys per se, because you can. In Unleashed, they decided to go for the hordes, like the normal Iron Kingdoms. You were playing, like the jacks and stuff. In this one, you could be the Circle of Ouroboros, which they tell you stuff. You could be the Trollkin. You could be the Pharaoh, which are the pigmen.
Right.
The Gatormen, they did have the Nis refugees, so you did have that. But then they had the Tharn, and apparently they were doing something, and I forgot what the guy's name was. He was the was it Matt Wilson? I can't remember. He was the guy that was behind Privateer Press, but he decided to.
That was such a great logo too.
Yeah, well, the Privateer Press, they were going through it, and they were playing the game. He says, "What the hell?" And so he decides to start eating humans and stuff. He's like, "No, we need to see how this mechanic works. We need to stop playing good guys and really lean into it." The same thing with the Gatormen. The Gatormen have that voodoo aspect to them.
If you play a Gatorman, I almost have to say you have to fake your best Cajun accent.
Well, exactly. You got your Cajun accent, and I mean, who doesn't love that? I mean, as much as people are like, well, it's just stereotypical. They're Gatormen. Get over it.
Yeah, I was talking to Bear the other night and about doing accents with your characters, and he's really big into it.
Yeah,
and I think I'd like to get into a few more games where I can just start messing around with accents. It's fun. I mean, it doesn't hurt it. as long as you're not completely disrespectful
Well,
about it.
I think that's true of everything. When the accent doesn't dominate it, you know, there's certain things I do not like. I don't like the Japanese anime with the women.
Oh yeah,
The women's voice is super high. I don't mind the men. But when you watch something like Shogun, where they're actually doing that, you watch Shogun. And I grew up on a lot of the Akira Kurosawa films. And it's like, and they're like, well, I couldn't play an Asian character. No, you're playing a damn samurai. That's it. You don't. Everyone wants to get into this race thing. No, you play the culture, and you lean into it. And unless the culture is intended to be humorous, which, to be fair, if you're playing a serious game, it's not intended to be that way. And if you're
yeah.
playing Monty Python's reenactment, whatever game that is, then you expect it to be tongue in cheek the entire way,
Oh yeah.
and have fun with it. I mean, I like you said with Cajun. Absolutely. If I was going to do a pharaoh, then I'm like, okay, what would I do? And again, these are they've got the bog trogs, which are kind of fishmen. They've got the pharaoh. They've got the
Pharaoh, I
frogmen.
would do it Georgian one.
Well, you know what? And so many people loved the Iron Kingdoms because they had like the French, they had the Russian, they had that strong Russian influence. I was like,
Yeah,
that was cool. But they've
yeah, I
got
could see
this.
that.
What's that? Oh,
I'm just working in my head with the Russian. No, I can see that.
no, there was the no. Well, I don't mean necessarily the Pharaoh. I mean, what was the one that I forgot what they are, but they're red and white, and they have their war jacks, and they're 100% Russian. They even have Russian names and everything else.
Oh,
And you're like,
nice.
oh yeah, it's um, I'm like, well, that's what I want, But like the Tharn, I'm not sure what I would do for the Tharn, but the Tharn are, they're like normal human beings, but then they can turn into a beast. And then they're known for like eating human beings. You're
Are
like,
they like
well,
where not where's?
they're similar, but you know what? But they're not like full. They're not full werewolves. They're
Everyone has shifters. That wasn't exactly men or werewolves. They were that middle ground.
well, these don't turn into fully. What I want to say is that they become bigger and more bestial, is what it
Nice.
comes down to. And Unleash was not intended to be really playing the good guys. You're kind of playing that third group. That's you're not really evil. You're not trying to corrupt everything, and you're not really trying to stop or protect the world. You're just trying to be what you are. And they did have other stuff. They had the Scorn, which I would consider kind of evil. They had, it's like, but they're not. But most of them aren't trying to take over the world. And it was interesting. I liked it. I liked the Trollkin. I liked the pigs. Which the Trollkin were my favorite. People said, well, they aren't that serious. Can't we just have some factions that are just fun? And their miniatures were fun. There were things like one of them, like you see this hand hanging out of a bag. There was another one where like they're holding a pig and they're running away with it. I mean, they're.
Did you ever get into Pathfinder when it first popped?
Which one?
Pathfinder, first edition when it first came out.
No, because Pathfinder seemed to be a reaction to fourth edition D&D.
That's fair. But
And I wasn't really into
me and you
3.5.
both have a common thing when I say we look at artwork.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I do.
Artwork on the book. Pathfinder has some really beautiful artwork, especially when it comes in artwork when it comes to the goblins.
And you know what? So does Warhammer. Warhammer makes certain races fun, which is what you want. How do I put this? Not everything needs to be a Shakespearean play of, or a great masterpiece of self-flagellation. I've been watching a bunch of Bollywood films, action
Okay.
films.
They can be interesting.
Well, they're completely ridiculous.
Oh yeah.
They're going in there, they're doing something else, and they break up into a song and dance. Doesn't matter what it is, in the middle of whatever they're doing. And like sometimes that's just what I want to play. I don't want to play the super serious, dark, brooding. It gets boring over the time. The dark, brooding loner that it's like okay, fine. Yeah, I've seen enough of that. I much prefer. I don't necessarily mean I want everything to be as ridiculous as what's that one? Critical Roles thing.
Their anime is fun as hell, though.
Their anime is a little over the top, mostly because I was saying, "Hey, son, you could watch this," and I was like, "Yeah, that's a little much."
No.
Well, and see, I was hoping that it would be more like that. I'm like, you don't have to make everything, That
You
he's a
were
bit
hoping
older.
like the 1983 Dungeons and Dragons, and what you got was 1990 something Cool World. Yeah, no, I get it.
Well, what I wanted was something that was more like, Pirates of Dark Water.
Yeah, that was a great one. As we're talking about this, I just had, the director Guy Ritchie.
Yeah. Oh, I love Snatch. Yeah.
Do that. Just do a campaign that's somewhat like that, but you can only play a gobbo.
but you know what? As a DM, and I think this is what some of them are afraid of, is say, "Hey guys, guess what? You can only play goblins." I was actually going to do with my friends at one point before they decided to take away everything, which I think is so ridiculous. Before D&D became way too politically correct, they had the rules for kobolds, and they got
Yeah.
minuses to their strength and a few other things.
Oh yeah.
And I was like,
3.5 days. Yeah.
yeah. Well, we're talking like, no, this was 2019. This was before they rewrote everything.
Okay.
No, I mean I have the books.
No, I believe you. No,
Yeah.
I just haven't seen the stats, the plus and minuses to races since 3.5. So I'm not saying it's not out there. I just haven't seen it.
Well, they did it for the goblinoids. The goblins, kobolds, orcs.
Yeah.
They did it for that, and then whoever, of course, I think they're going for clickbait at the time, which is why no one likes them. Oh, orcs represent black people. Like what? That's why they get negatives, and that's not fair. And I'm like, no, orcs represent orcs. They're supposed to be evil creatures, and the whole reason that you have half orcs is not because, that they were. It was not because of consensual love between, a mommy and a daddy.
It was straight up some struggle snuggles.
Exactly, and that was the point of the half orc. And if you actually read the old player's handbook, it says only 10% can pass somewhat for human.
Oh God, yeah.
And see, that's what the players would play. Later on, they include the other stuff, but they include like goblins, kobolds, orcs. I think hobgoblins. They had a lot of those. Well, I was going to have my friends play kobolds, and the kobolds were going to start off like really low, and they were going to kind of get kicked out, and then over time they get more power. It's like, yeah, but it was kind of intended to be humorous and ridiculous, and I was going to give them minimum stats, which was going to be even more interesting, which meant that you got 8s all across, and at 1/6 in strength. And then every time you went up a level, you could raise a stat. That's what I was going to do. So it wasn't every 4 levels. Every level you gain a stat. So then you get to figure out what you're going to do. And I was just going to make it completely ridiculous. And I think that the players would have had a lot of fun with that. Because you're playing kobolds. You're not supposed to play them seriously. Like you said with goblins and Iron Kingdoms. They're not really meant to be played seriously. Same thing with Trollkins. Even though Trollkins have a great setting in the background, the Trollkins seem and I go by the artwork and stuff like that, they seem like so much more fun because, God, everyone is so serious and downer. That's why Warhammer has orcs. If it wasn't for the orcs are completely tongue-in-cheek, the same thing's going on for...
I think this can is a pew-pew gun. Okay, pew-pew. How the hell does that work? It's orcs.
Well, you know what? The way I look at it is orcs are MacGyver. Like if I take this Pepsi can and put it together with this ballpoint pen, and then you cobble together, and it shouldn't work for anyone except you.
You know why orcs cars drive faster? Are red because they think red makes cars move faster.
Exactly. They have different colors. Hey, that's good there, Bruce.
What's going on, guys?
Well, we're just talking about Iron Kingdoms and why you need more humor in games. Not you in particular, but
is there a Hungar in the chat?
There was.
Damn it.
But I mean, we were just talking about the different races that are just meant to be fun, and they're tongue in cheek, and they're not meant to be the super serious. I'm gonna win an Academy Award for this. No, it's.
Well, I hate to tell you, Connell, but don't skip game for date. Skip game for sure thing. Not for
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah.
You know what
I didn't
though?
skip. No, I wasn't skipping game. I just wasn't able to stay there for the entire game. I was there for at least 6 hours of it.
You could have played for another 3.
Yeah, I saw you have 5.5 hours up there, Bruce. I think, or someone had 5.5 hours.
That's more than what a lot of people got today, but that still doesn't make it okay for us to stop. It's like, damn it, Connell, we were having fun. You're almost.
Well, I was hoping to have some grown-up fun.
So it actually yielded a little fruit. Okay, that's good.
Well, yeah, just different attitudes. Again, I don't mind. I like shorter games myself, so I don't feel like I lose my whole time.
I don't mind long games. I just had a date. I haven't been on a date in 17 years.
Oh, wow.
My angry dolphin says no.
I'm sorry, but the married man doesn't get to determine the single guy's dating life.
well. Speaking of accents, let's not forget Bruce's Skeletor.
Oh God, yeah. No, I want Bruce. If I can make this ever work, I'm going to run a system out of whatever, and it's going to be very much a Blackadder style campaign. And Bruce is going to be Skeletor the entire voice of Skeletor the entire time.
I'd be okay with that.
You can have Skeletor. You can have Pinky from Pinky and the Brain. You can have Baldrick, from Blackadder. That's actually, speaking of humorous, and not that I've looked into it again, but the old Paranoia.
Ooh.
That is a hard one. I don't think I could ever run that, but boy, I love the whole idea of if you're trying to backstab everyone, but you don't want it to make it obvious.
Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've looked at. I haven't looked at the new Paranoia. I mean, I bought it years ago, but hey, there's nothing wrong with the back of turtles. And actually, what I have to laugh at is all these people that claim about flat Earth, and yet when you ask them, it's like, does it impact your daily life? And the answer is no. If you're not doing surveying or doing stuff or certain other things, it doesn't affect your life whether the Earth is flat, round, or a geoid.
I like to think the Earth is a great big donut. No,
well, and this is how we know that the Earth is banana shaped. So, I had my son watch Monty Python's Quest for the Holy Grail, and he thought that was great. But yeah, that's one of the lines they have is, this is how we know. This is how. Tell me again and how we can employ sheep splatters to stop earthquakes.
A couple of weeks ago, I ended up watching Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy twice.
Which one? Are you talking about the series or the movie?
The movie.
I liked the series, the old British series. I watched that. I liked them a lot more.
Well, the fact that the author of it, the author wasn't part of all variations of it, and as Bear said multiple times, the author knew that since it was doing a different media, that it should be a different take to it. Right. And if it's the author messing with his own crap, I'm not going to say 2 words.
I think the author
okay. There's 2 schools of thought to that. You have the author can molest his own product as much as he wants to, but then you have people that watched the first 4 seasons of Game of Thrones and were like, "Oh my God, this is so good," and then in season 5, it kind of got a little comic booky, and we're like, "Well, this isn't that bad. It still maintains the same tone." Although they did make it more adventure centric for the tourists who've never picked up a book or want to pick up a book. And then season 6 hit. Yeah. And it was just utter shit.
Well, season 7 was terrible, and then I would go for 8 seasons or whatever. You could tell that they phoned it in. And to be fair on this, didn't George R. R. Martin? He was involved in the first few seasons.
First few seasons, then he stepped out. You could tell in the show where he stepped up. To be honestly, I kept watching it because I want to see Emily Clark naked at least one more time. You know.
Yeah.
You gotta go back to season 1 for that, for your fact, for your reservation.
It's not Emily Clark that I liked. It was the what was her name? The redhead that was the one of the north.
Sansa?
No, not her. The other redhead. The one that the Jon Snow liked.
Oh, and Rose. Her real name is like Rose something.
She married him. She married him.
Yeah,
they married in real life. It was great.
He's like, no offense to the actor, but he's kind of an off the street, nobody. And she's like not royalty, but she's got a title.
Well, she was very attractive, yeah. But I thought it was interesting because you look at a lot of them, and yeah, it was.
Nothing.
This is the problem: is the writers were more interested in doing Star Wars than writing a good series.
You're going to do Star Wars. You could tell they were all excited about their next project. They didn't give a shit about the one they were trying to wrap up.
What gets me about it is if you had done a good job on this one, you would have had everyone would have fallen at your feet. But there were other things too. They were given effectively an unlimited budget if they wanted it, and they were offered more writers. And they just they complained that they were burned out, but then they weren't letting other writers come in. Like, no, you should let other writers come in to flesh it out. But yeah, and I don't know. I liked House of Dragon first season, but I haven't really heard anything good about the second season.
So it's second season's close. The first and second season are close to the book. The problem is the book is dry. It's just dry, and there's only so much entertainment you can put to a turkey leg. I don't know. I don't know. I don't mind it. I just watch it just for ideas for campaigns. The great steal from everybody else, so why can't I?
And I have nothing wrong with that. I mean, there's lots of really bad B films that still have great ideas in them. Like, oh, okay.
There was this movie that came out years ago called The Druid. It had Christopher Lambert in it, right?
Yeah.
The only thing historically accurate about that movie was the clothing. So when I joined the unit I'm with the medieval reenactment, my unit leader's like, we need to sit down and watch this movie. I'm like, do I have to? This movie's horrible. You see their clothing? Yeah, that's historically accurate. That's what I'd like to see you have. I'm like, oh, now I have an idea. The rest of it's just trash.
I'll tell you this much and I find it interesting that my son actually prefers the movies of when we were growing up more than the movies that since he's been born. Well,
yeah.
Like I had him watch The Lord of the Rings because you're speaking of costumes, and they have the extended edition, and they have all the extras. And they show all the work that they were putting into like the armor and the dresses. I just thought that was fantastic. I really do love stuff like that.
My heart goes out to whoever group had to make all that chainmail. I know how to make chainmail. I made chainmail shirts in the past. It sucks.
Well, what's interesting is that they said that they did that and they actually wore off all of their fingerprints.
Oh yeah. You'll burn. Yeah, that is ceramics. Yeah. Ceramics is another quick way to rub off your finger tips. I've been told. Anyways, why people don't have fingerprints are criminals? Well, I always joke that if I ever hit the lottery, I mean, I'm not talking about the small lottery. I mean, the life-changing. Oh my God, I have a 1.6, $100 million in my bank account after the good Uncle Sam gets their share of it. I was going to hire whoever the costume people was for like Lord of the Rings. I'm like, can you just make me my garb for my because.
So is it Dequetium or whatever he does where he has the historical armor and things like that? But they do like full on combat with actual weapons. Now they're dull, but yeah, it's a great channel for watching him do that. And I mean, they go at it, but they had they had one that was like knight versus samurai, and they were going through it. They had one where a little short film where he's like, I shot the knight's horse, and they were trying to get it, and he was trying to get the crossbow, and they were doing this in real time, of course. Anyway, he couldn't get the crossbow up in time, and the knight's just walking right at him, kills all three of the guys. I'm like, oh, okay. They're only like 3 to 4 minutes each, but they're great on showing like how they would do it. And then he has like little extra clips, and sometimes if they fought the battle a little differently, like it's unscripted combat. So,
there was this horrible show on History Channel or Discovery years ago called Deadliest Warriors, which was
oh yeah, I remember that. And then they later moved that to Spike TV or whatever.
yeah, the show was horrible, but there was a couple combos that was kind of interesting, like the samurai versus the Viking.
Yeah.
And the argument, well, their main weapon would cut right through the guy. I'm like, it's a slashing weapon. It's not going to do anything through chainmail.
Well, people forget about that. Is certain weapons we start doing it, and even for the samurai, their main weapon was generally either the bow or a spear,
which would do some serious damage to chainmail.
but the sword in many cases was used either against unarmored opponents or as a status symbol. And the same thing actually applies in many cases to swords. There's a reason that the poleaxe was one of the main weapons that they used. But I was watching. I do the exercise. I'm doing like 3 different programs right now. But I was watching one of the guys, Mark Wildman. Anyway, he was talking about doing some physical therapy for the guy that does Boohurt. I'm not sure if you've heard that. It's where they do full armored combat with each other, and they have different groups. And he's like, well, what happened to you? He says, well, I almost got my fingers cut off in this case, and then I had my knee jacked up, and then I had my, something with his shoulder. He says, we're putting him through a year's worth of rehab, and this is the workout plan. But they were showing some of the stuff they're going, and it's like 5-on-5 in certain cases. Some of it's 12-on-12. Some of it's 30.
I've seen some of the videos. I got a couple of friends who have bounced from what I do to SCA to that.
Mm-hmm.
And the amount of money that you're pouring from one to the other is Bruce could have bought 2 houses by now.
Well, to be fair, if you look at that back in the day, that's probably what it cost when you start adding in the horse and then you add in the armor. But
the worst thing that could be happened to you financially was for a king or somebody to make you a knight, because you had to be backed by somebody. Unless you had a lord, then it was coming out of your pockets, and that's why attorneys were such a popular thing.
Oh yeah, but I like I said, the Dequitium and some of these others, but man, they go at each other, and it's just like, and yet they talk about general armor, not necessarily tournament armor, but actual combat armor is usually limited to about 65 pounds. And that's because they found, this is true even for modern militaries, of course, they overload. A soldier can generally fight in about 1/3 of his body weight. And, but I love watching when they do the armor and like, okay, and then they do cartwheels and like full plate.
I've kind of, Bruce, you're here. I'll go ahead and say this. I don't think I've actually got into it with you so much, but I've been in campaigns, I've been in games where you can't sleep in chainmail, or you just can't sleep in chainmail. I'm like, bullshit, you can't. And the DM's like, how do you know? Because I've done it.
I can say this much after wearing, the modern body armor rig. I fell asleep every time they put me in that, and then I got in the vehicle and be like, if you're tired,
it's a weighted blanket. It's a bulletproof weighted blanket.
Well, what I do like is when they say that you can't recover, you can't rest well. I'm like, that is fair. I'll give you that. But to say you can't sleep at all, that's ridiculous.
I've taken multiple naps in chainmail and slept just fine. I've slept in leather armor just fine.
Yeah.
Metal armor, I haven't. Maybe a chest piece you could sleep just fine in, but no more than that.
Well, even I think Joan of Arc was found that she would sleep in her armor and stuff. But again, you don't get a restful night's sleep. But if you're tired, you're going to fall asleep. That's just the way it works. I mean, if you are that exhausted, so I have no problems when they say you can't recover, but to pretend that you can't wear armor is a whole different thing. And to be fair, why would I take off all of my armor before, unless you're going into a battle? Like if you actually look at like the actual knights when they would do things, if you weren't, they would have their retainers all around them. They would line up for battle beforehand. But, there are plenty of instances of where, knights have worn their plate armor and samurai doing the same thing for like a week at a time.
Oh yeah. I
It's like,
have the same
okay.
feeling when I wear my great kilt. I put on my great kilt, and as soon as I get that thing on, it stays on for at least a couple days because it's too big of a pain in the ass. Not to take off because taking off is easy. Putting
Yeah.
some of it back on, I don't want to.
Well, and I think some of it is that they'll take off certain things that are easy to put on. They might take off their gauntlets. They'll take off their helmet. I'm like, okay, that's pretty easy to do.
I am more likely to penalize the players if they're out in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
I am more likely to penalize the players not for sleeping in armor, but for not setting having a campfire to stay warm. Because sleeping on the ground will suck the heat right out of you.
Oh yeah.
So, maybe Bruce has got the right of it. Bruce has been writing his own, system. I've got to play with it, playing it a few times. It's a good system, and maybe I should, make a, hey, this is my point of view RPG, whatever.
Well, I mean, there are lots of RPGs. And I like different ones that are in there. I really haven't played Forbidden Lands that much, but I have nothing against it.
Dark Sun always remind me of heavy metal magazines.
It is. Well, I think that's the intention of it. It was intended to be that way. It was intended to be that Mad Max heavy metal sword and sorcery. Like if you ever saw them where it's like, oh, of course they were big breasted and had little armor, and it's like, okay, and that's the way that Brahm draws stuff. And I'm like, all right, I have, but the art. I think the artwork made Dark Sun more than just the setting because the artwork was so different from the regular D&D stuff.
I don't know about you guys, but I had a small stack of heavy metal magazines as a teenager. You, Bruce?
Bruce, do you have any sound
right now? When I was in East Peoria, I would take my heavy metal magazines to my job, and we put them in the bathroom. So, I mean, I'm just saying, like nobody was upset that I brought in a newer heavy metal magazine because there's a stack of like 20 of them in the bathroom, and all the concrete mixer drivers are reading through this shit. Like, what the fuck is this? Like, how do you actually read these, or do you just stare at the pictures and masturbate? I read them actually.
Oh, wow.
Is there stories to these? Oh, holy shit, there are.
I mean, I read them.
My favorite was the Gypsy.
I didn't get them myself. I really did more of the, I would read them like, the stories aren't that great. I prefer like Creepy and a few other things out there. And of course,
I'll vouch for
them. So there's some of that.
There was some really good stories in some of the heavy metal magazines. There was the Gypsy that they had built a giant set of interstate bridges over the oceans and had little rest stops. And so he was traveling along with like a younger girl, like early 20s. And he was doing everything he could to keep her safe. But it was a very deadly job because the rest stops were actually like slave rings. It was good.
I will say this much is some of the ideas were kind of cool. I didn't necessarily like them, but to be fair, I think that every story was by a different author and things, so you can get good and bad in there.
Except for the Gypsy Omnibus, which they later compiled in like a 300-page graphic novel.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's cool. To be honest, I don't even know the last time I've seen a heavy metal magazine. Are they even in print?
They are trying to come back, but they were a victim of the Me Too bullshit from a few years ago.
Oh, okay. That explains why I haven't seen them. That's
I
like,
thought that they were French.
They might have been at one point. I don't think so anymore.
Well, what I meant was I thought that they had done French stuff. So apparently, so they had it from 1977 to 1990. I didn't realize this. Kevin Eastman owned it from 1992 to 2020.
Yep.
So
It was Eastman's way to kind of like give back, and it helped him balance himself after Julie died.
I didn't realize that Julie Strain had died.
Yeah, she got like dementia, and like he kind of divorced her because he couldn't get into give her the medical care, and so by him divorcing her, I believe it kind of made an opportunity for them to get her better care than what he was able to provide.
you were talking about this on Janet's
during
show.
our show. During our show today.
Was it tonight? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, it actually had a pretty good circulation as of 2016.
Heavy metal rocked, man. I really miss that magazine. That was a good part of my 30s, the healthier part of my 30s. And I know that sounds really bad, but it was.
I saw it in the like I hadn't really looked at it, but when I was in the Navy, they had it over, and that's what my friends would go read. I was like, oh, okay.
We had a lady that was an officer. She always did our bedding inspections, and she got really butthurt because one guy had pinups of all the heavy metal stuff from Milo Manara on his inside of his bunk.
Ooh.
Yeah,
and so like Manara's big, like he had a crush on Kim Basinger from like 87 to 92.
okay.
And so he drew all of his femmes, all of the females, just like Kim Basinger. And this lady was a fucking lieutenant commander, or no, she was a lieutenant at the time. And she was built like a fucking refrigerator. There was no way that somebody would ever get a stiff one just by organically looking at her. It had to be one of those stiff ones that like she was there and rounded the corner after he had a dirty thought. And that's the only way I can think that she ever had kids.
Wait. My favorite was, and I actually heard this from a lady. She was a lesbian, but she says, look, I know I'm a Chicago 5, but I'm an Iraqi 10.
Yeah, I mean, there is a huge difference between, what you rate here at the garrison versus what you rate, out on deployment.
Yeah, but no, I thought that was funny. She was not an unattractive woman, but but she was like, look, I know I'm not like super gorgeous, but when she was over in Iraq, she was like, oh yeah, I know.
Well, it's funny you say that because when my ex-wife was with her first husband and they were down in Florida, they moved back up here, and Jerry said to her, down in Florida, you're about 5. You're a Florida 5 or 6 or whatever, but up here, you're about 7 or 8. I'm like,
facts.
It's
for Illinois, she was cute.
I will say as much as I remember being in Kuwait, and one lady she came in a blue sundress, and it was so unlike how everyone else dressed out there. She might as well have been a Martian just by the way that she looked. I mean, and when I say it was kind of a sundress, it was further, it wasn't up to the knee. It was probably more down to the ankle, but it was just this very floral, attractive blue. And it was just like, wow, I can't even tell you what the lady really looked like. I just remember that she wore this blue dress that did not match the desert or anything else out there. And that's why, but there you go.
Man, you got to be careful when you go out on deployment because some woman comes around in a $7 made in China sundress, and there goes $1,000 a month for 18 years.
Yeah. Well, but no, but like you said, I liked a lot of the cover art for heavy metal. I didn't like the stories as much for what I saw. Now, I only saw like 4 or 5 of the heavy metal magazines.
Oh, I had a lot of them.
I remember watching the movie. So,
oh God, I had the soundtrack before I had the movie. I was, as a Christmas or birthday gift, I was given heavy metal, CD, and I fucking jammed out to that. I went through like maybe 2-3 discs of those before I actually saw the movie.
Wait, hold on. You wore out a CD by overplaying it?
Oh yeah.
I've had CDs for years, and I've never had that happen.
So I've done it to quite a few actually.
Okay. Apparently, I don't listen to my CDs enough.
Everything's now become MP3, so I get to listen to that. So I was out in the field, and not that I think I'm cutting edge or anything, but there were a couple of they just graduated from college. And I said, "Oh yeah, I've got some." I said, "I like to listen to my dwarven heavy metal," and they're like, "By dwarven metal, like what?" I said, "Well, Windrose," and like what? And I said, "Yeah, I'll go play some." Now, of course, some of this was introduced to me by DM James, but they've got Diggy Diggy Hole and a few others. But these guys dress up kind of like dwarves and do their singing. No, I mean, and they do. It kind of reminds me of.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, well, but some of the stuff they do, it kind of reminds me of they put heavy metal with like an Irish drinking song.
It works.
It
does.
does. What's the other band I like? Man of War.
There's more. I'll tell you one I like, which is the Mongolian throat metal.
Who?
Yep.
He was on Dune, the Dune soundtrack for Harkonnens, if I remember right.
Yeah. Well, I know that I like to. Well, they've also done Star Wars and a couple of others, but I'm like, all right. And I don't know if you have this, Bruce, but have you signed up for Vet Tix?
No. What's Vet Tix?
So Vet Tix is if you have prior military. So if you're a military veteran, you get basically free tickets. All you have to do is pay for the processing fee. So it comes out to like $15 or $16 for 4 tickets.
Okay.
And you can go look, and usually it's just tickets that they haven't sold out, and they let you know about a week or two in advance, and you sign up and you can get that. And it's some of them are by lottery, some of them are other stuff, but it includes TV. It includes concerts, comedy shows, and some other stuff. So if you sign up for it, I guess you use the ID.me or whatever, and you can find it. It includes also sports events and things like that. So if they have any spare tickets,
Oh,
you
nice.
can get up to 4 of them. So
There's a rugby game that's going to be sometime this coming year up at Soldier Field. Ireland's playing a New Zealand black team. The tickets for minimum, because you have to buy two, $500 a pop. So a minimum of $1,000 up in Chicago. So I won't be going to that.
unless they have some spare tickets, you can go through Vet Tix.
No, I can't. But
I'm saying if you have some friends that are
yeah. How do you feel about coming back to Chicago? I know I can't get Bruce up here.
No, I'm not into it.
I think Bruce would have a great time at the cigar lounge. I know he smokes the cigars. He might not do a whole lot, but I've at least seen him smoke a cigar once.
Not that I like smoking, but I'll tell you this much: when I did go to cigar lounges, I had really good conversations with the people there. They were all interesting people.
Oh, I love the place. I have them part owner at every walk of life comes through the door, and it's not snobbish at all. I've been to a few lounges. There's one in down Tennessee that you basically has a dress code.
Yeah, but no, I went to one of them, and unfortunately, the guy passed away. But he was a former IBM, had several patents. Anyway, he really interesting, cool guy to talk to, and that was through my friend. And then of course he got to know different people there that were also in some business owners and stuff like that. So he's like, hey, let's go over here. I'm like, yeah, they've got really good tacos and a few other stuff.
I've always kind of daydream about finding a way to have like a game shop that caters to cigar smokers, where you can sit around table and just smoke cigars and play RPGs, which at the place I can do. I just don't have a group of people around me that. Well, I do have a group of people around me that will play RPG games. I just don't have a group of people around me that will smoke cigars and RPG.
I always wondered, and I know that we have a place locally here, and everyone talks about game stores dying, except for Magic. But I went, and I think this was the what is that? What is that really cool store that they have over in San Antonio? I can never remember its name.
Which one? Night Watch Games?
That's it. The one that has right next to it has the cosplay stuff.
Yeah. Night Watch. Yeah, I know the owners really well.
I like what they've done, which is they've also made sure that they have like a little mini restaurant, and that's the way that they help support it. The problem is that too many people go for one single revenue stream, and really, if you can have your own food there and it's half decent, you can make a killing.
Their food is good. It's just you have to buy like 5 or 6 servings of it to get like 1,000 calories of French fries. It's like I'm not shy about my eating in public. I'll get a fucking plate of nachos, and like you can't do that there because like they give you this little like I don't know, this little place to put a ladle, but they turn that into a dish, and you get it's just a tiny little thing.
Okay.
You have to you'll spend $30, $40, $50 on food there. The food's really good. It's spiced well. It tastes good. It's just the serving size is like, really? I've had more nutrition out of an Eagle Snacks bag on an American Airlines flight back in the 90s.
I don't know how I would do it per se.
So here's my idea for it, because everyone needs to do this. And I was talking to someone, and he's like, "No, that wouldn't work." But I don't understand why it wouldn't work. Is if you get a laundromat, and then you put a restaurant right next to it, because like people are there for hours anyway, and then you put a restaurant right next to it, and this was an A&M. They had a thing called Harvey Washbangers, which is nice. Is you put your stuff in there, you go eat in the little restaurant right next door, and they had the little lights, so it would tell you when your clothes were done. It'd say, "Oh, this machine's turned off," and then you go in there and you can, move your things over. I hated going to laundromats. There was nothing to do, and I didn't want to just leave my stuff. But I was like, but if you could get like a laundromat, an RPG thing in there with a restaurant and something else, especially since college kids do not have usually their own laundry. So
they've got one of the other things that San Antonio has. I got kicked out of it, but we have probably the best pinball coffee bar I've ever been in.
How did you get kicked out of it?
I brought my own magnet.
Oh.
Yeah, you deserve that, Bruce. But
no. When like 90% of your machines have magnets that just fucking turn on during the middle of a fucking wizard mode, and your shit goes down the left out lane. It wasn't going there in the first place, but now, because the magnet's on, it is. And I'm like, no, I'm done with this. Went outside. I had a magnet in my car because I use that at my yard whenever, before I take off or before I, in either my truck or my car, I like to run the magnet over the ground.
Oh yeah, so you don't get.
Yeah, no more nails in my tires. This is how we save $500 a week. So I do that. But I've got a small magnet, got a big magnet. I took the small magnet in there, and I made sure that like I tried to kind of like set my cup on the magnet so you didn't really notice it at first.
Yeah.
But one of the operators was walking by, and he noticed that I had 5-ball multi-ball out on fucking Medieval Madness, which is like the best wizard mode I've ever had. And he was like, "Hey, you can't be doing that." And I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "You got a magnet there." I said, "Yeah, you got a magnet in the fucking machine too. Fuck off." And they're like, "You're out. You're done." And I'm like, "All right."
In Sunnyland and Peoria area, there's a small town between what?
It's right between like Washington and East Peoria. It's like 5 roads. They call it Sunnyland, but it's a bunch of lower middle class area, and it looks lower middle class. It's not bad.
There's a couple good restaurants out there.
Yeah, there are. There's some real good restaurants, mom and pops. You've got like a Dunkin' or there's a Dunkin' out there. Or
there was no. You're right. There is no. It closed down. But anyways, the reason why I bring up Sunnyland was right next to the laundromat. There's a movie theater. So my mom, when I come and visit or whatever, is like, "Well, I gotta go do laundry." And when all the kids were too young, and I didn't want to stay at home because being at home was boring. And
Oh, you don't want to watch Fox News with your mom all day?
no, no, that would be
I
with
don't
my
like watching
grandpa.
most. I mean, the news I watch is fine, but I watch everything at 2x speed, and I don't like watching all the commercials. I
So
mean,
you only watch news on YouTube. I hear you.
well, I do
just-
that. Well, I also listen to some stuff on locals. One of them got me out of getting the COVID shot, so you know.
Speaking of news, I saw a tad bit of news earlier when I was walking out the door. My English teacher, former English teacher in high school, is now the mayor of Washington. Boy, do I have stories for their newspaper.
I was in the middle of running our game, and my dad asks me on text message, "Hey, did you know this guy?" And he sends me a photo of like one of the guys that used to always pick on me because he was one of the cool kids, and I'm not the cool kid. And I'm like, "Holy shit, this guy died!" And I kept reading. I went back up to the top of it, and it says he died in November, but they're doing the celebration of life and notifying all the newspapers of this yesterday and today. I'm like, what the fuck happened to where he died in November and they like have the body sitting, you know,
It's got to
or
be cremated.
either cremated but still the holding of this could not have been cheap if they actually held the ashes for 6 months. I would think they wouldn't, but they're having a
No,
celebration
you
of
get
life for him next Saturday.
you get cremated. They put you in a coffee can, and what you do with the coffee can and the ashes is up to you. They
You've
don't-
watched too much of the Big Lebowski, my friend.
Well, no. I was just thinking of the
That-
Married with Children one where they dumped out all of the ashes, in
Mhm.
his grill, and they had to replace them.
Oh yeah,
They-
that was Mary.
Oh, the burgers taste better for some odd reason. Yeah.
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 Well, I thought it was funny because they were showing them, and like everyone's like,
Billy
"Oh!"
Bundy
And
shoot
put
into
the
that
hamburger,
burger.
all except Steve, where he takes a bigger bite because he knows it's her. Yeah, it was.
Kelly
no.
Bundy. No, Kelly Bundy didn't. Yeah, Al Bundy fucking shoot into that.
No.
Yeah.
Al Bundy did that, but he didn't know. But they were telling everyone. But it was Marcy's,
Marcy's grandmother.
yeah, grandmother, and Steve hated her grandmother. So when they told him, he took a bigger bite. It's just.
I missed that show. They were talking about bringing it back, but just do it as a cartoon where you can get all the original actors, which is not a bad way to do it. It's like
Well,
Married with Grandchildren or something like that.
I part of what I loved about that anyway was it was unabashedly, they weren't afraid of offending people, and that's what made it fun. And it was formulaic near the end, but I still loved the part where they had, where they used his socks to power the alien thing. There was that one, and then the other one was when they're like, I did enjoy it. It's just I like the part where they said, "Have you seen?" When they had the kid for whatever reason, and then they got rid of him the next season, and they're like,
Yep.
"Have you seen this child in the milk?" They
Yeah.
really got the reference if you knew. I thought that was great, but
I want to live in a world where I can sell shoes poorly and have
A badass 3-bedroom house.
in Chicago.
Well, you could have had one long ago. You just had to be, you just have to be 70 now. No, I saw how much my when I lived in Chicago, they split it up into 3 levels. So one person was in the basement, I was in the middle floor, and then the landlady and her husband were on the top floor, and they got up to like 330,000. It was not that. I mean, for everything, and I mean, the second floor is 1,400 square feet alone.
Yeah.
So it was. I was kind of amazed, but that was right after 2008 when everything had tanked.
Oh wow. I lucked out. I mean, after college, after I drank myself out of college, I was still dating this girl who was on the Katie. I was dating Katie at that time. And Katie's like, "Well, I'm graduating from college." I'm like, "Well, it was nice dating." She's like, "You want to move up to Chicago with me?" I'm like, "I can't fucking afford Chicago. Are you serious?" She's like, "Well, just move up with me. You get whatever job you can. You pay for the groceries and whatever, and I'll carry everything else. Worry about everything else." I'm like, "Well, okay." So I could watch a Cubbies game from the roof. It was amazing.
That was good. I didn't go to a Cubs game. I got some free tickets with my son, and someone had season tickets, and they gave me 2 tickets for one of the games on a Saturday. And I took my son out there, and we watched like 3 innings, and then he had enough. I mean, he was like 4 or 5, but it was still kind of cool to do that with him. So
we have a Peoria baseball team. It's definitely, minor league. I've been meaning to go to the new Diamond and check out a game and go see the Rivermen, which is both of them are, to be fair, a waste of fucking money. But there's nothing like catching a hockey game, a hockey game or a baseball game.
I think now, of course, the price had gone up a little bit, but I remember going to a Baltimore Orioles because they were ranked as the lowest thing that you could get. The tickets were $7.50.
Oh wow!
Each, and they gave you a T-shirt to go in.
Nice.
And I was like, "This is a good deal." And at the time, my son's mother still worked for, I forgot who it was. Anyway, she worked for a guy who had, I guess he'd interned with the Baltimore Orioles. Anyway, I came back with this shirt that I had, from Baltimore. And I said, "Here you go," and he was really appreciative of it. But yeah, and what was funny was, we had the seats. Well, it was during a televised game, I think with was it Los Angeles or whatever. But then they said, to make it look like there are more people in the seats, they wanted us all move forward. So we started in the back, and then they moved us really far forward. And so
I have a friend that has a pretty good job over at Civic Center, and he's like, "If there's anybody coming in town, let me know. I could probably score you some tickets." I'm like, "Cool. How much?" He's like, "Don't worry about it." So I was told if when WWE comes to town, which I do want to see, not that I'm a big fan of pro wrestling, I just want to see a few female
yeah,
wrestlers in person because I think they're fucking amazingly hot. And he's like, "What they're going to do is they're going to all pile you guys into like this to make you look more like what's
yeah.
there." I'm like, okay, I don't care.
What was the other one I went to? Well, I know we have a Comic-Con here. I'm surprised that is that you didn't try going to Adepticon or anything there, Connell.
Which is that one?
The Adepticon is, I think it happened in April, but I think Adepticon is the one that's the big miniature war game along with other stuff over right outside of Chicago.
Well, there's Winter Wars down in Champaign. That's halfway decent.
Oh, they still have Winter Wars going on?
Yeah, they still have Winter War.
I remember when Bear used to be part of that. And I don't know if Bear's still alive or not, but there's a guy that he had a Bears comics and RPG stuff, and he had like the coolest store I'd ever seen, and it was like a bunch of HO scale train scenery and engines, and then like the back 3 rooms was just retail space, and he had one table that he only let Warhammer people play on because that was in front at the window. And when that started going on, people start playing Warhammer, and next thing you know, you have people walking in. And that was kind of cool.
Warhammer and Magic, that's how you keep your doors open.
So Adepticon, well, last year was in Schaumburg, Illinois, but apparently it's now going to be in Bardwell, Milwaukee.
So. Gen Con's this weekend, I think.
No, Gen Con is in August, usually.
Should be in August. Should be.
And then Dragon Con? Dragon Con, I thought, was around July.
Yep.
What is North RPG Con, the one over in Denton?
Where the post from?
North Texas
RPG Con.
RPG Con. When is that one? That one is. I'm looking.
Bruce, you were around when they used to have those Gen Cons at ICC, right?
Yeah, I used to do that.
So that one's. Yeah. Oh, okay. So, wow, they're going to put it in Irving. I thought it used to be in Denton, but if it's going to be in Irving.
They used to have it in Irving. The one in Denton is actually the ReaperCon.
Oh, okay.
And ReaperCon is coming up. They just opened up the information for that. That is, the tickets are now live. That is Wednesday, August 27th.
That's how I'm
Nope.
gonna get Bruce
Wait,
back in the
yeah,
area.
Wednesday, August 27th through 31st of August.
So I'm looking right now. This is not a bad price for the one that's in North Texas RPG Con.
Mhm.
It says $115. I'm not sure if that's with two people, but it says for the room in the Westin.
The convention price is $100.
That's not bad.
That's
That's
not
the
bad.
entire con. Daily rates are $50 except for Sunday, which is 40. They've got a fuck ton of old style stuff.
Well,
Well,
Bruce,
they-
that's how I'm gonna get you back in this area. Get your tickets to go to the ReaperCon.
Why would I? ReaperCon's 5 hours away from me. I would just go.
I don't know. I'm still trying to find a reason to get you back up here that doesn't
You
involve.
don't want me back in Illinois, man. I'll fucking burn that state to the ground.
Just for like a long weekend, you'll survive.
I don't want to go to. Want to go to Illinois? What do I
Yeah.
do there? So stare at all the buildings I used to work at, and now they're closed.
Well, I'm just thinking about, the only reason I would go back there, but she doesn't talk to me anymore, so it doesn't matter. So
Oh, speaking of cons, so there's a type of cigar con that they have. The only way to get into these cons is you have to be in the industry one way or the other, an owner of a shop or whatever. And I've been, talking about this for years. I want to go, but I don't know anybody that owns a shop. And I was talking to our store manager at the lounge. He's like, you do know you can go to those now. It's like, yeah, we have to sign up for it, but you have to buy your own ticket, but you can go. I'm like, oh, you're right.
yeah,
Pay $100, go walk out with $300 worth of cigars and cigar swag. Oh yeah.
See, I would go to ReaperCon probably more than I would go to NTRPG Con because NTRPG Con that's not bad. I mean, you still do have like Bill Webb and Frog God Games going there, and I would love to go hang out with him for a weekend.
I mean, they have a lot of people up there when I'm starting to look.
Well,
at
here's
it.
NTRPG's list for so far.
Yeah.
Dave Beatty, Ben Barsh, Bill Barsh, Eddie Bartlett. Now I know the Barshes. They run their own. They have their own little system. It's a basic version clone.
Yeah.
Ben Burns, Chris Clark, Levi Combs, Darlene. I have no idea who she is. Jeff D. I've heard that name. Manda, Kelsey Dion. That's the Shadow Dog girl.
Yeah.
Jeff Easley, the great artist. Matt Finch, Uncle Matt as we call him. He's got the original Swords and Wizardry was his. Jason Rocky Gardner, Dr. Greg Gillespie, Dragon Slayer, excuse me, Zach Glazar, Skeeter Green, Frog God Games, Jeff Grubb, old AD&D guy, Matt Goulet, Glenn Hallstrom, he's an amazing YouTuber. I like him. Keelan Halverson, Alan Hammock, Chris Holmes, Alec Kammer. He wrote a book series with Margaret Weiss.
Okay. And
Alex Kammer also wrote some stuff for Frog God. Doug Kovacs, Diesel LaForce. I forget what he does. I think he's a old dungeon cartographer from back in like the 80s, late 80s. Ian McGarty, Stephen Marsh, Chet Minton, James Raggy. We all know who Raggy is. Merle Rasmussen, Victor Raymond, Dr. Scott Robinson, James Shields, Liz Stewart, Mike Stewart, Dr. Dennis Suster, he wrote the original Druid class in first edition. Jeff Talanian, Jim Wampler, artist. Bill Webb, Frog God Games guy. Tom Wilson, Steve Winter, old AD&D and TSR guy. Ronan Wong, artist, I believe.
Well, I mean, I'm seeing Zeb Cook and Doug Kovacs as well.
Yeah.
You start looking at them and it's like, but I like the older stuff anyway. That's cool. Again, it's a nice idea. My son is just getting into Dungeons and Dragons. He just won't play it with me because, well, I don't have breasts. So,
yeah, that's the same reason why I can't get Frank Mincer to look at my system. If I was a cute blonde girl, I'd be okay. But since I'm a dude with a beer gut, it kind of kills it.
I know. Well, I have to laugh at the whole thing, but no, my son, he's now doing that at the local library. With
Hey, yeah.
it's about 50% girls. My God, I just remember that we were lucky to get one girl in our game, let alone any.
There was a time when I was running at the game store, that the game room up in Peoria.
Yeah.
My entire party that I was running was 4 married couples. And that was the worst I've ever done because it was terrible. It was terrible. The reason why I say that is that, like, all the drama from 4 married couples that were like already hanging out, like they would use my game session to hash out their problems, and inter-party combat is all that ever happened. It was a fucking nightmare.
So this is what I've heard is the best thing that you can do with 4 married couples.
Cash and Guns. Oh yeah, great game. Bang bang bang.
Well, he said what was the funniest? I talked to a guy when I was in Iraq. That's where I learned about Cash and Guns. One is it's a fast game, but the other thing I liked about it, he said, boy, when you get with married couples, they almost always point at each other.
Did you ever play Jungle Speed?
I have not played Jungle Speed.
Oh, that is a reflex game, and it is very, very good. But you learn that game, and that's like the Dark Souls of reflex games for board gamers. It's very tough and punishing.
Wow, this normally Weston was kind of expensive, but that's not bad. I'll have to. You know what? I'm trying to decide if I want to go to North Texas RPG Con. Actually, I don't think I can because I've got to do my inspections that week. But otherwise,
speaking of Texas, I met a couple that drove from, was it Arizona? Then they were here for a wedding. Anyways, they were talking about Texas and Taylor, Texas.
Yeah,
Tyler, that's where.
Tyler. Well, Taylor's just south of me, but Tyler's way off in the corner. Yeah,
it might be the one far off in the corner. Yeah, they said they had this amazing restaurant. If I ever make it to Texas, I need to get to them. I'm just picturing the state of Texas in my head. I'm like, it's one of the biggest states in the union. It takes,
So for personal experience, I can tell you this, and this was not unusual. When I was in construction, I had job sites almost in Oklahoma and others in Stark County that is literally on 35. That's on the opposite ends of each other, basically. And it was 10 hours. It's about 6 hours south, and it's about 3.5 hours north to go through those. And that's from like Oklahoma to Mexico. And that's just one way. And if you go from Texarkana to El Paso, it's just as long as if I was going to drive from from here to Chicago.
Jeez.
Yeah, so Tyler's not too bad. Tyler's about 3 hours away. I mean, if you're coming, if you come down, then
there's a handful of things I would like to see in Texas, which I'm sure is very nerdy, but it's my thing.
Which are?
That I would like to check out the basement of the Alamo. There's a cigar shop in Houston I want to check out. I mean, when I make it to Texas, because Bruce will eventually get his own place, and I won't be able to say, well, maybe sometime down the road, but actually go down there because there's a lot of people down in Texas I'd like to see, meet in person. You,
sure,
Chris, love to hang out with Bruce at his own damn table at least one more time. Unless he hits the lottery, then I guess I have to move down there. At least that's what he said.
Sorry, dude. It's the rules. If I win the lottery, yeah, because I'm building I'm going to have 4 fucking manufactured homes in a subdivision.
You'll all end up working for Bruce Bruce and his.
You don't want to work for me. Unless you really don't want to be working for me, not with your skill set, and then swapping over to sanitation.
I get to see both ends now. No,
you're laughing at that, but I was kind of going. I hate saying it. When my father probably passed away, depending on how the will goes, if I get enough money, then I'll build my house, and then I'll probably build a small house for my mother and my son. It's like, well, okay, that's going to work. Just, you're saying like a tiny home, but I don't want to pre-manufacture. I'm like, okay, it'll be like this.
Have you seen the manufactured homes?
I have, but I want an ICF home, which basically, which is concrete, so you don't have to hear anything. Plus, it can take a 50 cal. So
ICF Homes.
insulated concrete forms. It's basically styrofoam that they pour concrete in the middle of.
Those things are getting kind of popular in Florida.
They're used in Florida. They're used up north. They'll survive like a 200-mile-an-hour tornado. Your windows won't, but the house will. I also look at it this way: as if my house completely burns from the inside, I'm still left with the shell. So it's like, okay, I can rebuild part of it. But no, I already have my house set up, and I had a friend of mine. She says, where are the spare bedrooms? Like, what do you mean? I said, it's me. I don't plan on having any more kids. Well, it's not that I don't want to have more kids. I'm too lazy to go out on any more dates. So it's not like I'm going to find a woman. So if I was going to do that, then I'd go to Southeast Asia. The women are very attractive and they're friendly, and
You would actually do really well with a Japanese wife, I think.
Oh, I probably would. It's the American women that are the pain in the ass.
There's a part of me that wants like either a Colombian wife or a Romanian wife. They're both fucking crazy. They both might kill me, but the sex will be worth it. Now,
Hey! I dated that Romanian model. She was pretty awesome.
every time I'm gaming with Bruce and we go to intermission, and Bruce puts up his intermission, which is a bunch of South Americans riding horses.
Nothing wrong with that.
I'm not saying that there is. It just makes me want to. It's like South America, man. I just need to.
I went to Cambodia and it was so funny. They're talking about like, I'm so old. I'm over the hill. Like, how old are you? 25. As I'm getting older, I need just someone that probably Filipino would be a better way to go with them being a nurse.
Bite up your nose. No, no, I get that. I don't know.
What I need is I just need someone that wants to live a farm life, and I meant to do it, except I don't know how. Though things have calmed down a lot, but you're never quite sure. And like, well, will I have a job? Otherwise, I was going to say, and I'm trying to save up to put down a down payment on a house anyway. But I was like, well, I was going to get bees, but I'll hold off on that.
The bees.
Hey, you know what? I was figuring it out. It might take a few years, but you can kind of turn a profit on them, depending on how much you want to spend. But I could probably turn a profit within a couple years in bees.
I'm a big fan of honey. Natural honey over sugar any day of the week.
Oh yeah. My son. Well, we have what's called the Texas Walker Honey Farm here, and you can get. They had 20 at one point. They had 20 plus different types of honeys. I think they still have like 12 plus different types of honeys. And so my son became a real connoisseur of the different types of honeys. But they have like 3 or 4 barrels that you can buy. You just bring in your jar and you just pay by the pound.
Oh wow!
And it's only like everyone talks about how expensive honey is. Like it's like $4 a pound. And yeah, a gallon might be $50, but like I said, it may have gone up in price a bit. But okay, that's assuming it's like $60. Still a gallon of honey. I'm not sure how much you're going through unless you're my son.
How many pounds are in a gallon?
8. So honey is about 1.5 times the weight of water.
So yeah, maybe about 12 pounds.
Yeah, it's about 12 pounds.
So to make proper mead, I need about 15 to 16 pounds of honey.
Oh yeah, that'd be pretty easy to do. From over there, in fact, if you go over to this place, it's over in Rogers, Texas, which is about 2 miles away from me. They have 2 sites. They have they have the normal site that you go in. We can get creamed honey and all this other stuff. That's more for people like myself that only want to buy a small amount. And then they have the other building, which is if you want to buy 55 gallons of honey, or it's
no,
just depends on what you want to do.
My favorite honey is the honey that's harvested from bees that are in an apple orchard.
My son, let's see, his favorites, and it varies a little bit. He likes mesquite honey. He enjoyed a lot. Cotton honey, orange blossom honey, and at the time they had snowberry, but snowberry's gone away. But snowberry honey, they used to grab that, and those were his favorites. I think cotton honey is his favorite now, but I have some mesquite right back there.
Mesquite honey.
Well, all it is just which type of flowers they're getting it from.
No, so. I know. Dealing with honey, it does still have the accent of where they're harvesting the pollen from, and like mesquite honey. I'd be interested to see what that tastes like.
Well, like I said, I'm not a huge honey fan, but I'd rather give honey to my son than just plain sugar. And we would go down there, and at the time they had the little bears. You could do a little taste. You just put it on a little spoon and you taste it. And they had all these different honeys, and you could buy. It was cheaper for him because he'd go through so much. It was cheaper for me to just buy a gallon at a time than it was to buy anything else. But even a pint, a pint's what? So it's a little over a pound. What, about 1.5 pounds?
What are you painting over there, Bruce?
Well, I've got a couple figs that I'm working on. One of them is this Vicarious. I wanted to say she was a marshal until the fucking sword snapped, but that's resin. Resin figures just have that, and I haven't started making.
They're fragile,
super fragile.
Well, especially since those limbs are not disproportionate. That's one thing about with 40K, because they have that big armor. You don't have to make those really small things. But this is the wild honey, which I'm surprised my son hasn't eaten more of. And his mother actually does have honey. She has her own beehives.
We've got a lady not too far from us over to the east of town, and she has her own Meridian hive.
Oh, nice.
Which I didn't think that, you could have bees that did various things, but she's had orange blossom honey for a few years, and then she added some Meridian honey hives, which that's what they call it. I don't know if that's really the name of it, but I recognize Meridian honey because that was a variety of Texas mead that the mead used Meridian honey, or they called it Meridian mead. And that was different. That was one of the HEB specials for a while.
Well, and this Texas Walker honey farm, I could go to HEB. That was one thing. Ignoring everything else, the fact that Chicago did not have like one good supermarket. He had to go to like Jewel, and then I had to go to Costco, and then I had to go to Whole Foods. Like, really?
We always went to Treasure Island. Heights Park.
But I mean, when you see like an HEB, and this is what you're used to growing up, or even a Winn-Dixie, or even a Publix, and then you
can get everything you want at one store.
Yeah,
I miss Publix. I miss Publix. I enjoyed Publix. When we were down in Nashville, I went to a Wiggly Piggly.
Okay.
And I bought a shirt because fuck you.
Piggly Wiggly?
Yeah, Piggly Wiggly.
No, that's kind of cool. Like I said, I'm but I can't. Sorry, going back to North Texas. Yeah, I can't make that. I'm gonna be out in the field.
Are you going back out in the field?
Well, I'm gonna be. Well, I'm doing inspections, and we put them off. We didn't get the money until the last. It took a while to get all the money in there, because we had to redo a whole new agreement. But it's basically every other week I'm out in the field. So this week I was out in the field, and I got done. It was only 3 days, so we were done by that. But because the way that Doge is working now, and it's kind of ridiculous, is they're well, we only turn on your card during certain times. So I went, well, first off, I'm required to pay off my own card, so it doesn't matter if I charge to it anyway. I still have to pay it off. It doesn't matter what goes on there. I get reimbursed, which is usually what happens. But if I'm not, if the government isn't paying for it and they don't pay for anything that isn't authorized, it has to come out of my pocket. So I don't understand why they did that. That was one. And then the other one was, but that's some of the things they have to do. So so we've just found it easier to, because it takes such a pain to we have to, instead of just saying, hey, I want to go out next week, let's set up travel. Now I have to like get my travel approved like 3 weeks in advance. Like, this is a pain in the butt. It's not even federal government money. It's state money that's given to the federal government. So anyway, it's just a pain in the butt for that. But and then they also turned off some of our other cards, which are a pain. It's like, okay, fine. It's just more paperwork, oddly enough, that I'm not sure it really benefits. That's okay. Go out in the field. That's part of the reason I enjoy my job, is I can stay in the office and go out in the field. And then sometimes, because we don't get travel, it's just going to be a long day. All right, I'll leave at 6. I'll get home at 8. Well, that's the problem with Texas. It takes like 3 to 4 hours to drive to some of these places, and then you're 3 or 4 hours on site, and then it's 3 or 4 hours back home.
That's the other reason why I like Nashville. Everything was like 45 minutes away, long enough for me to get away from the fucking house, but not too far away.
Oh, well, I mean, where I live, it's not that bad. I think I can get to my friend who's who's pretty close to Central Texas, Central Austin, in about an hour and 15. Depending on the time I leave. So if I leave early in the morning on a Saturday, I'm fine. I'm not going there during the weekdays, but and then when I leave, if I leave at 10 o'clock or 11 at night, drive up here, it takes about an hour. So that's why when I hear all these people like, I couldn't live there, it's so far away. I'm like, how often are you actually going out? I mean, honestly, if you want to do something in Austin, you can go do that during the, if it's like a concert or something, you can do it. It's not that hard, and I don't spend as much time in traffic. It takes me like 10 minutes to get to work.
If I've moved down to Texas, and some of the Renaissance fairs I've heard down there are pretty damn cool.
Oh, the Scarborough Festival, the one in Plantersville, which is the Ren Fest. Those are.
Bruce would be annoyed with me and Chris.
Chris went to one over by San Marcos over in Bastrop. And he said it turned into the Pride Parade. It's not like blacksmithing and chicks wearing the peasant garb, and
yeah.
It's now like Halloween, but just for gay people and Wi-Fi people.
That's why you just find a different Renaissance fair.
Yeah, we need a different Renaissance fair. We can't have. We were going there, because we want to take the kids there. Like no, you're going to see a bunch of guys walking around with their dicks out, and a bunch of women walking around with strap-ons. It's like, okay, once night falls and they all like settle into, their orgy, we're just going to douse them all in gasoline and have a fire.
Now, let's see. This is what they're going to, let's see. This year for the Ren Fest starts October 11th through November 30th. And then what's the other one? Is it Scarborough?
My other fear of moving down to Texas, being anywhere near Bruce, is my assumption of beer has really gone down over the last couple of years. I move anywhere near Bruce, and it might just jack right back up. No offense, Bruce.
Your consumption of beer goes right back up again. I'm sorry.
That's a horrible thing.
Like, if you want, we'll just get you tequila. How's that sound?
Tequila makes me make some interesting decisions.
So we have plenty of women you can test your fucking your theories on.
Hey, you just missed the Scarborough Festival. That was April 5th through May. Well, no, it's still until May 26th. What's that?
What was it called?
Scarborough.
Okay.
I mean, so you got 2 Renaissance festivals with a couple of in between. I'm sure there's a couple others in there too. So
there's plenty of that stuff going on down here. Hopefully, they don't have pride flag shit going on at all of them. God, that would piss me off.
You know what though, and I've been noticing this more and more. That crap's disappearing. Even Disney's getting rid of that crap. Just because I think that they realize that the people that they're trying to appeal to don't buy anything.
That's kind of what I was hoping would happen. I mean, Connell will disagree with me and say, "Oh no, Aliens was good," but
Romulus wasn't bad.
Like all the stuff that was in there was like most of that movie was just a straight horror movie, which I did appreciate, but there was some stuff in there that I just didn't agree with.
I mean, go for it.
No, I didn't like the fact the very last situation was the girl that was pregnant. Now she's got an alien baby. Are you fucking serious? That was a problem I had.
I'm gonna let's see. We'll see what their new series is that they're coming
Oh,
out.
on Hulu.
Yeah, which is still Disney. And then
It's
what's
supposed
the
to
other
follow
one?
the comic book.
Well, then the other one is the now they're doing more Predator stuff. So who knows how that's going to go? But at the end of the day, and this is the problem that Hollywood's having as a whole, is no one cares. I mean, that's
I do think it's funny though. We have a potential to where the alien queen is now a Disney princess.
oh, I
Hunger
yeah,
is-
I
Hunger
remember
from
that.
Ash is now a Disney princess.
Well, she is a Disney princess, and she has the evil stepmother, Win Ripley.
I'm brought back to the Drawn Together episode where the girl with the octopussy is trying to tell everybody about her evil stepmother, but she has to do it in pantomime.
I have not seen Drawn Together in 20 years.
That is such a good show.
It's been a while.
It needs to be brought back and uncensored. Uncensored Drawn Together is quite possibly the best show ever.
I still love the Boondocks.
Oh, I love Boondocks.
Boondocks is okay.
Boondocks.
Well, I loved it with the hoes going to dinner, but Grandpa, she's a hoe. Like, well, how do you? No, she's not. Does she run really fast in heels? Does she?
Whenever I'm around a bunch of, it depends on. It's like Derby. This past Derby, we did at the lounge, and the lounge had we made brats, hamburgers, hot dogs. We had a whole thing. And a couple of guys are now sitting around in their chairs waiting for the Derby start with like old fashions, mint juleps, and a couple of them started yawning after eating. I'm like, I see the itis has kicked in.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And the only person that got that was a black gentleman in the corner, just kind of laughed to himself. They're like, "What?"
So when I was in Afghanistan, we had two younger individuals, and I guess they were like, this was in 2012, and they were black. But I guess they were too young to let their parents let them watch the Boondocks. I'm like, you gotta watch the Boondocks. They're like, what? Like, just trust me. And then, of course, they're laughing their head off at the whole thing. I still love the one with the, when the Stink Meaner crew came in, and then they have, but in the early 2000s, man, it was like you had South Park, you had Family Guy, you had the Boondocks, you had, they're going through like, of course, of course, they finally finished off the series, but the Venture Brothers, they had, the Dave Chappelle show. They had all of these things that were just hilarious, and a few years later, it's like they're afraid to make anything. They're like,
well, it's funny. I think I have it on my phone. It might not be there anymore, but I used to have this picture where it says, "You want to know what's wrong with me?" And it showed Sam Kinison, George Carlin, Eddie Murphy, and a few other comedians, Andrew Dice Clay, and it says these are the comedians I grew up with.
Well, but like I said, I was watching. What was the other one they had? There was something that they there was a BBC thing where they were making fun of Indians.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever seen Drawn Together? Not Drawn Together. Spinning Image. They use puppets.
The British puppets.
It's funny as fuck. They
both the old and the new.
Yeah, it's fucking hilarious. No one's safe.
Oh well, this is what it was called. Goodness Gracious Me was the one that was in there. It was sketch comedy on BBC, and it was hilarious to watch as they would, But I'm like, you guys are so sensitive that now you can't allow anyone to laugh at anything, and I think that's what killed it. I was seeing someone. I was watching Sargon of Akkad a few days ago, and they were saying that this millennial lady's like, "We're not cool anymore." And he went, "You were never cool. This is why Gen Z makes fun of you." He said you didn't have anything of your own. all the cool stuff that they remember is the stuff that I remember as Gen X. I'm like, no, you were a young kid for that. I was an adult when I was watching, even the cartoons, the Sam and Max, the Tick,
Oh God.
the Batman.
Spoon!
Oh, come on. Batman, the animated series, the Superman.
X-Men. Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, all of that is more my generation.
I
Well, it's fun with your kids too, but with you, Connell. But I was like, I'm watching that in my 20s and having fun. And I said, yeah. And you look at them like, they act like they're somehow cool. Like, no, you weren't. You were so conformist and afraid to do anything and to say anything that might get you criticized that no one likes you. Gen Z doesn't like you. Gen X doesn't like you. The boomers don't like you.
Yeah, no, technically I'm a millennial, and well, there's an argument that because I'm between a certain time, I'm not an X or nor am I millennial. I'm a zennial,
You're a
or
Gen Y.
and
Hey, the problem is that they looped in the Gen Ys
yeah,
with and strike on millennial. The problem is that it's like a 20-year gap in there. And see, like the friends I had, or the friends I have is about your age, in their early 40s, 40 or so. They didn't grow up in social media. What I heard the big gap are those who were just coming into puberty during social media, and that's where the big gap is between them.
yeah. I
Because,
consider myself the bastard generation.
but I remember coming back from Germany, and this was when sci-fi actually was kind of cutting edge and didn't mind being a little edgy, and they actually were, they said, well, Gen Y. So I was like, okay, I'm a Gen X, but they said, yeah, Gen Y is coming. And they didn't start calling them millennials until like 2001. Oh, all these millennials. Well, my friends by then were, 17 or 18, and social media didn't come out until 2005, 2007. But they said that's the big difference is that all of these people that went over to social media during puberty, that's what caused a lot of this neuroses and everything else.
I wouldn't doubt that.
It's like most of my friends are anywhere from 10 to 15 years older than I am.
Yeah.
My ex-wife was 8 years older than I am. I have a friend that calls me a geriatric millennial because I remember when the phone was attached to the wall, and I know what grass feels like.
Yes.
I drink water out of the hose because it tastes good. I
Well, but yeah, there was a lot of that. It was, somewhat right at the internet, pre-internet. But yeah, it's this whole thing that but they're all like, we're not cool. I'm like, yeah, you're not cool because you didn't do anything. You sat there lecturing people, pretending that you're some virtuous person when you're not. Um, it was a performance. You were so conformist. I said, being cool does not mean that you go along with everybody and agree with the government.
I think what helps me in this argument is my mom was 15 when she had me, and I was raised by the generation that raised her.
Which was probably the same generation,
That
which was probably the baby boomers.
Yeah. So, well, Generation X is cynical. Yeah, and
I mean, we were the ones that perfected chili beans and Franks.
Well, our generation did two things. One is we were right there when the internet was born, so there was that aspect. So I grew up with computers as a kid, but I still remember having to do DOS and being useful. It wasn't like that was.
I remember DOS, but I was not useful.
Yeah, well, what I meant is you had to do that. I remember having programs and stuff in hexadecimal, which I'm like, okay, fine, I'm right about there, but I just have to laugh at the whole thing. It's just like when they complain a lot about the boomers. I'm like, I don't think you complain about my parents' generation as much, but you're complaining about the ones that are a little bit younger that were,
Oh, I have friends. I have a few friends that are roughly about my age, and they are very much because I think they had older parents when they had them. They're very much millennials, where I had a younger parent than my grandparents. I don't know. It's like there's certain character traits that Gen X have. Quoting movies is a big one. I've noticed. Yeah.
Well, you know why? You know why? Because we actually had movies that were quotable. I was watching. I mean, No, I mean, like I said, as my son looks over and what does he watch? His mother had him watching Spaceballs.
Nice.
Um, you know, Spaceballs. I had of course, this was still, even though I didn't watch until I was like 15. Was My Python's Quest for the Holy Grail, which
So
I had
yeah.
him watch. Um, we were watching a lot of these older movies, and my son prefers them. Ghostbusters. He likes watching a lot of this stuff. I mean, we had Terminator and all these other things. And unfortunately, what do the millennials have? They have the MCU, which was okay, but
It's not very quotable. Quotable.
no.
My favorite thing to do is when my daughter has any packages coming in, I'm like, "What's in the box? What's in the
Oh yeah,
box?"
and that was in like 2000 or in 1999. That was later in the 90s.
Yep.
Seven. Was it Seven Sins? Sins seven.
Yeah,
Seven.
yeah. It's the
90,
yeah. Go look.
95.
Okay, 95. All right. But yeah, you're right.
Still, Or I go outside and I've been inside all night, and the sun hits me. Bright light, bright light, bright light. So yeah, no.
I think my son watched the Gremlins for that. I mean, but a lot of this stuff, I still love I was telling my friend who hasn't seen it, even though he's a little bit older than you, but he's about 5 years younger than me. I said, you need to go watch
Gremlins
Big
2.
Trouble in Little China.
Gremlins
Oh
2.
yeah.
And he's like, what? I said, trust me, if you play D&D, you'll enjoy Big Trouble in Little China. It's completely ridiculous.
Still in the checks in the mail.
That's right. Yeah, it's all in the wrist,
It's all in the reflexes.
I do have to say, I saw the Thunderbolt movie. That has Kurt Russell's kid in it, right?
Okay.
Yeah, White Russell reprises the role of being the Captain America impersonator.
A U.S. agent.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I was watching the movie and he was talking. I closed my eyes. I'm like, fuck, he sounds just like his dad when he was younger. Then I'm looking at him I'm like, fuck, he really looks like his dad from like the Thing. When he did the Thing.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not exactly carbon copy of each other, but there's enough there. Like, I know who your daddy was.
Well, I was watching the Monarch series that they had on Apple.
Yeah. Where one played the younger version.
Yep.
That was great.
Well, and it works really well because it is his son. I mean, but no, I'm just thinking, you had Snake Plissken, so you had, Escape from New York, Escape from LA, which is funny.
Which you can play in real life now every time you leave LA.
I thought it was Escape from Chicago. But no, it's that's the one. Actually, it could be Escape from Houston too.
Took me 2 times watching Escape from LA before I realized the surgeon was Bruce Campbell.
Oh yeah. But well, I still love some of the movies that are really good that just didn't do well because terrible marketing was Dread. I love that movie.
The most recent one, yeah. That did actually. It's like Hellboy, the most recent. Not the most recent, but the Hellboy without Ron Perlman, because there's a new one out that's trash. Okay. Felt like the comic book, and it was amazing. Dread felt like the comic book, and was it? I'll go round and round with Shadow. My favorite Conan movie is the one with Jason Momoa because it feels like
It feels like the actual books.
It did, but I hate saying this.
Bad writers. I mean, it was a horrible.
That was the problem. I really do love the original Conan the Barbarian, but some of that is also the writers haven't. The problem with Hollywood is their writers haven't done anything. If you look at like Oliver Stone actually fought in Vietnam. So he has like real world experience, and some of these people are just wish fulfillment. Like, no, you need to go. What they should tell these people is go get a blue collar job, work there for 5 years, and then come back, and then you can be a Hollywood writer.
Oh, Quentin Tarantino. Yeah. He worked at a fucking Blockbuster before he became a director. So he made his bones watching movies before he became a director. He knows what works.
You mean True
And-
Romance?
Oh, I love True Romance. That movie gets me into so much trouble. Hey, you like history? No,
Well, no. Well, the other thing I liked is Kill Bill. For anyone that grew up on kung fu films,
oh
you
yeah.
can tell all the homages to the kung fu films, and I was like, and how in the world, you know, that's I was watching some of them, and of course they were doing this as activists. And I think they've gotten away from that. Like I said, I think they realized they're just making no money from it. But there was, you know, the comic book writers, like, no, the people grew up on comics, and you're just trying to do this. Like I heard one of them, they said that they gave her Batman, but she said, well, you know, I don't like regular Batman. I'm going to make it to a love triangle in Hong Kong where Batman is an Asian billionaire and in a love triangle with Selena Kyle in high school with the Joker.
That could be a good show.
You know, if you're going to do a love triangle, and I really don't want to do one with Batman, do Batman, Catwoman, and Two-Face.
Or if you're going to
At
do a
least
love
that makes
triangle
more
with that,
sense.
I mean, if you're going to do a love triangle with that, then, you know, well, no, my whole point is that these
That's
people are writing
Dumb writing.
they're just bad writers, and they're trying to do wish fulfillment instead of saying, hey, we're going to actually try keeping people together. Well, I was just listening to one guy talk about the WNBA and all these people complaining about, you know, people aren't watching the WNBA, and they should, because these women are so amazing. I said, here's the real problem is men don't want to watch women play basketball for the most part, and women don't want to watch butch men play basketball. So it's
Well, you know what I want to watch? Volleyball. Beach volleyball.
well, beach volleyball, yeah, but at least the women look attractive.
Yeah.
That's part of the problem is you start looking, it's like, well, stop blaming men for not watching women's sports, because women outnumber men and they spend more of the discretionary income, so women don't want to watch women's sports.
Well, on YouTube, there's this thing called the Laundry Football League.
Oh, well, they've had that for years, yeah.
I you know, off season I'll watch that. And I'm not me and sports ball is always kind of I know I can follow basketball a little bit. I know I can definitely follow baseball. Football has always been kind of for me. I played rugby, soccer.
You have to. How do I want to put this for football? See, I never lived in the state until probably I was 15 or so that even had a professional football team. That's just the state, and I didn't live in one that actually had one that was in the metropolitan area until I was in my 30s, when I moved up to Fort Worth or Chicago. Well, then Chicago, yeah, but it was Fort Worth, which was the Dallas Cowboys.
But they were good in the early 90s, well, mid 90s.
What's
95, 96. Cowboys couldn't be beaten 95, 96.
Oh, it was early. Yeah. Oh, I know. I remember that. I still remember, my friends supporting them. But my whole point being is that you start looking at it. But I grew up on college football, and so I always had more in common with college football. And went to the A&M games and stuff like that a few times. So
you know what sport I like to bring over from Ireland to here in America?
Fencing.
Oh no, hurling.
You know what? I would like to see whenever they do those games. I enjoyed watching the World's Strongest Men when they were actually doing some of the other stuff. But what is it? Is it the Caleb games? I guess the Scottish games where they do the hurling and then they do some other stuff. I always enjoyed those a hell of a lot more. I liked it when they did the lumberjack one, which usually seemed to be up in Canada or Maine.
I'm at the airport. I'm at I was at an airport one time, and we're flight's delayed, so I'm in some like TJ Friday, whatever restaurant attached, and they had the logging games, and I was almost missed my damn flight because it was more entertaining than anything else.
How fast can they get to the top, and then they take a chainsaw?
Oh, yeah.
They have they're standing on top of the log cutting. I'm like, look, I would rather watch that. It's the same reason I used to get mad that because I said, why am I watching fencing and some other stuff? And what it is, well, the Americans suck in those sports, so they never show them. They've gotten better, but for the longest time, if the Americans didn't do well in a sport, you never saw it on television for the Olympics or anything else.
Well, breakdancing's not coming back.
Oh, I was.
Anyways, it is 2:09. We've
Yeah.
done this for about 2 hours,
Yeah,
Yeah.
which was only
kinda
supposed to be
late.
a 45-minute, show. Thank you, Omanal, for hanging out with me. You have a good rest of the week.
Good seeing you guys.
Yeah, Bruce.
Make
No,
sure-
appreciate you coming in.
Oh man, it's a lot of fun. I like
Make
getting some
Yeah.
paint on these miniatures.
Make
Got a
sure
whole bunch of
everybody
these
in
I gotta clean
chat
up.
and you too call your mom later today. Wish her a happy Mother's Day. Because you might not know who your dad is, but we all know who our mothers are.
Yeah, and unfortunately, my father no longer knows who my mother is. So that's
There's
no.
a
My
bad
father has
joke
dementia.
there.
My father has dementia,
Yeah.
so it's been kind of hard on my mom.
All right. Well, everybody,
Fair.
have a good Sunday.
Later on, everybody. I'll be out.
Take care.